Action.
When I was 13 years old, I made a decision that was going to change my life forever. That decision was to give my life to Christ. And that was in 2010 at a D-Now, where I had never really heard the gospel before. I had never really understood what was the whole point of the gospel, but that's where it finally clicked. That's where I finally gave my life to Christ. With that, you go down 2 years later, I surrendered to the ministry, and with that, I had no idea whether it was youth ministry or worship ministry, because I love to play guitar and I love to sing, but I also had a heart for students and a heart for college students also. So whenever I was 15 years old, I devoted my life to ministry in a small church in Senatobia, Mississippi. With that, I had no idea what I was getting myself really into. I was 15 at the time. I wasn't really in a position to where I could pour into people. But go longer down the line, I was plugged into a lot of organizations in high school, whether it was FCA or Warriors for Christ, and even going into college, I was the president and worship leader of the BSU at Northwest. Now that I've told you how I got into student ministry, I'll tell you why I love it. So right now I work at Central Church in Collierville, Tennessee. I'm in a position to where I can lead worship and I can pour into students, and that's exactly where I thrive. I'm thriving at Central. I'm able to do worship along fantastic musicians and people who love the Lord. I'm getting poured into while getting to pour into students also. With all that, I'm growing in my faith. I'm growing as a person. Not to mention that I work alongside a great staff that works together also. So transitioning from that, I'd like to tell you about my future in ministry. I've always liked writing songs. I've always liked writing music. So I'd love to be able to write worship songs and record worship music. I'd also love to be a missionary because I have a heart for missions. Whenever I surrendered to the ministry, I claimed Isaiah 6:8 as my life verse, and that says, then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, "Whom shall I send, and who will go for us?" And I said, "Here am I, send me." So that's my motivation behind missions. And I'd also like to be a church planter one day. So in conclusion, today I've told you about myself as a youth minister, my journey in youth ministry, and my future plans for ministry itself. I also hope you have a clear understanding of what that journey looked like. In closing, when I think back to that day in 2010 and also that day in 2015, whenever I surrendered my life to the ministry and surrendered my life to Christ, I see how much my life has changed. As a result of that decision, it's obvious to see that hope is there, and there's still hope to come. So whenever I think about this, I think of a quote that C.S. Lewis said. He said, "Isn't it funny how day by day nothing changes, but when you look back, everything is different."